Blackbeard, Edward Teach. Imagine you are a young sailor on a merchant ship in the warm waters of the Caribbean. The sun is high and the sea is calm. Suddenly someone shouts from the lookout, "A ship's coming fast!" You grab your spyglass and look. Your heart skips a beat. The flag is black with a skull. A pirate ship. As it gets closer, you see a tall man with a long black beard standing at the front of the ship. He has slow-burning ropes in his beard, and smoke surrounds his face. It's Blackbeard. You've heard stories about him, but now you see him with your own eyes. He's real, and he's coming. Blackbeard was one of the most feared pirates in history. His real name was Edward Teach, though some records call him Edward Thatch. No one knows exactly where he was born, but most believe he was from England. He likely went to sea as a young man and may have fought in a war before becoming a pirate. By the early 1700s, Edward Teach had turned to piracy. The time when Blackbeard lived was known as the Golden Age of Piracy. This was between the 1650s and 1730s. Pirates were common in the Caribbean Sea, along the American coast, and even across the Atlantic Ocean. Ships carried gold, sugar, and other valuable items. Pirates wanted to steal these goods. Some sailors joined pirate crews to escape harsh life in the Navy or to get rich quickly. Blackbeard was not just dangerous, he was also clever. He wanted people to fear him so they would give up without a fight. He was tall and strong. He tied slow-burning matches under his hat and in his beard. When he lit them, smoke curled around his face. This made him look like a demon. People said he had fire in his eyes, but most of the time he didn't have to fight. Ships often surrendered as soon as they saw him. Blackbeard's most famous ship was called the Queen Anne's Revenge. He captured it in 1717. It was a large French ship, and he added more guns to it, about 40 cannons. With such a strong ship, he could easily stop merchant ships and take their goods. He became the most powerful pirate in the region. In 1718, Blackbeard did something bold. He blocked the port of Charleston, South Carolina, with his ships. He stopped every ship going in or out. He held important people hostage and demanded medicine and supplies. The people in Charleston were so scared they gave him everything he asked for. After that, he let the hostages go and sailed away. But Blackbeard knew the British government was starting to crack down on pirates. The King of England offered a pardon to any pirate who promised to stop. Blackbeard accepted the pardon in June 1718 and pretended to give up piracy. He even settled down in North Carolina, but many believe he secretly kept stealing from ships. The governor of Virginia, Alexander Spotswood, didn't trust Blackbeard. He sent soldiers and sailors to stop him. In November 1718, a British officer named Robert Maynard found Blackbeard near Ocracoke Island off the coast of North Carolina. Maynard planned a surprise attack. A fierce battle took place. Blackbeard fought bravely. He was injured more than 20 times before he finally died. Even after his death, stories about Blackbeard grew. Some said his headless body swam around the ship 3 times before sinking. Others said he buried treasure that was never found. While many of these stories are myths, they helped create the legend of Blackbeard. Many of the novels, films, and video games about pirates in pop culture are based on colorful figures like Edward Teach. Today, people still talk about Blackbeard. His ship, the Queen Anne's Revenge, was found in 1996 near the North Carolina coast. Divers found cannons, tools, and gold dust. These finds help us learn what pirate life was really like. Museums now show the treasures to the public. Blackbeard lived only a short time as a pirate, about 2 years, but he made a big impact. He didn't just steal from ships, he created fear with his looks and his bold actions. He is remembered not just as a pirate, but as a symbol of danger and adventure on the high seas. Imagine you're sailing across the ocean on a tall ship with huge white sails flapping in the wind. The salty sea spray hits your face as you stand on the deck, looking out toward the endless horizon. Beside you is your captain, a man with a sharp eye and a determined voice. His name? Captain William Kidd. Some people call him a pirate. Others say he was just trying to do the right thing. Either way, his story is one of ocean voyages, treasure, and a journey that changed history. William Kidd was born around 1654 in Dundee, Scotland. Not much is known about his early years, but by the 1680s he had made his way to the American colonies and settled in New York City. At the time, New York was not yet part of the United States, but was a busy port city in a growing English colony. Kidd became friends with important people there and soon earned a reputation as a skilled sailor and captain. Kidd's life at sea started as a privateer. A privateer was a sailor who received written permission from a country, usually England, France, or Spain, to capture ships of enemy nations during a war. It was a legal way to fight and earn money at the same time, a kind of professional sea captain hired during times of conflict. In 1695, the English government gave Captain Kidd a special job. He was asked to hunt down pirates who were stealing from ships in the Indian Ocean near India and Africa. The people funding Kidd's journey gave him money to buy a ship, and he hired about 150 men for the long and dangerous mission. His ship was called the Adventure Galley. It was a fast, powerful ship with sails and many cannons. At first, Captain Kidd tried to do what he was hired to do, find and stop real pirates, but things didn't go quite as he planned. Life on a ship could be very hard. The weather was rough, and food and money ran short. As days turned into months at sea, the crew became restless. In 1698, Kidd attacked a ship called the Quedagh Merchant. It was an Indian ship owned by Armenian merchants and had valuable goods on board. Although Kidd believed it was a legal capture because the ship was under French protection, and England was at war with France. Others saw it differently. The owners of the ship and English officials believed Kidd had gone too far. Suddenly, instead of a pirate hunter, Captain Kidd was being called a pirate himself. Knowing he was in trouble, Kidd tried to return to New York to explain what had happened. Along the way, he buried some of the treasure from the Quedagh Merchant on Gardiner's Island, off the coast of Long Island, in the hopes it might help prove his innocence. This act, the burying of treasure, has become one of the most famous things people remember about Captain Kidd, even if he may not have buried much at all. When Kidd finally arrived in New York in 1699, he was arrested and sent back to England. People were eager to find out the truth, and Kidd found himself at the center of a scandal that involved powerful politicians and businessmen. During his trial, he argued that he had only taken one ship and had done it legally. But the court did not agree with him. For many years after his death, stories about Captain Kidd continued to grow. Some people made him out to be a cruel outlaw, while others saw him as a brave sailor who got caught in a confusing and unfair system. Even today, historians debate whether Kidd was truly a pirate or just misunderstood. One of the most exciting things about Captain Kidd is that real treasure was found connected to his story. In 2007, what is believed to be the wreck of the Quedagh Merchant was discovered near the coast of the Dominican Republic, showing that parts of his story were true all along. Captain William Kidd's journey across the seas was full of adventure, difficult decisions, and surprising twists. He started out trying to do the right thing, but ended up remembered as one of the most mysterious figures in pirate history. His story teaches us to look deeper, ask questions, and understand that history isn't just about dates and events, but about real people making choices just like you and me. Imagine you're sailing across the deep blue Caribbean Sea on a sturdy wooden ship. The sails flap in the wind, and the salty spray of ocean water cools your face. You're standing on the deck next to a man with a wide-brimmed hat, a bushy mustache, and a confident grin. His name is Henry Morgan, and he's one of the most daring and clever adventurers to ever sail the seas. He points to the horizon and says, "That's where we're heading next." You grip the railing a little tighter, knowing you're in for an unforgettable journey. Henry Morgan was born around the year 1635 in Wales, a country that is part of the United Kingdom. No one knows exactly what kind of childhood he had, but historians believe he came from a family of farmers. Life was hard and full of work back then, and many young people dreamed of a more exciting future. By the time Henry was a teenager, he left Wales for the Caribbean, a region of islands and sea that was very important to European countries like Spain and England during the 1600s. At that time, these countries were competing for power and wealth. By his early 20s, Henry Morgan had become part of a group of privateers, sailors who were allowed by their governments to attack enemy ships and towns. Unlike pirates who broke the law, privateers had special papers from their country's leaders that gave them permission to go after enemy ships. Henry Morgan sailed under the flag of England and focused mostly on Spanish ships and towns. England and Spain were often at war or in competition during those years, so Morgan's actions were considered helpful, at least to the English. One of Henry Morgan's most famous adventures happened in 1668, when he led a daring voyage with hundreds of men to capture the city of Portobello in what is now Panama. It was an important Spanish town filled with gold and silver gathered from Central and South America. Morgan won the battle with surprising speed, using clever tricks and teamwork. The victory made him famous across the Caribbean and back in England. He didn't stop there. In 1671, Morgan led another huge expedition to take over the city of Panama, one of the richest cities in the New World at the time. The journey was long and full of challenges. His men marched through forests and crossed rivers, struggling with hunger and heat. After several tough days, they reached Panama and defeated the Spanish forces defending it. The city was badly damaged, but Morgan's reputation grew even stronger. People admired his courage and leadership. Even though some of Morgan's actions upset the Spanish and even some of the English leaders, he became a hero in the eyes of many in England. When he returned to his home country, King Charles II rewarded him with a new title, Sir Henry Morgan. That's right, he became a knight. Soon afterward, he returned to the Caribbean and was named Lieutenant Governor of Jamaica. That meant he was helping rule the island on behalf of the king. While in Jamaica, Morgan worked to keep order and protect the island from real pirates and other threats. He wasn't always perfect. He liked to celebrate with friends and had some disagreements with other leaders, but many people respected his experience and bravery. He spent his later years living on his plantation in Jamaica, where he eventually passed away in 1688. Henry Morgan's name lived on, and he became a legend not just because of his bold journeys, but also because he showed how a person from very simple beginnings could rise to become a respected leader. He may have started life with very little, but through courage, strategy, and determination, he made a lasting mark on history. Many kids and grown-ups know about pirates from the Pirates of the Caribbean movies. These movies are full of wild adventures, treasure hunts, sword fights, and ghost ships. The pirates in the films sail on fast ships, wear fancy hats, and say things like "Arr!" and "Shiver me timbers." The movies are fun, but they are not always true. The real story of pirates in the Caribbean is just as exciting, but very different. Pirates were real people. They lived hundreds of years ago. Most pirates in the Caribbean were active between the late 1600s and early 1700s. This time is called the Golden Age of Piracy. It lasted for about 30 years. During this time, pirates sailed the warm waters of the Caribbean Sea, looking for ships to attack. So why were there so many pirates in the Caribbean? The answer has to do with money. European countries like Spain, England, France, and the Netherlands had colonies in the Caribbean. They grew sugar, tobacco, and other goods. They also dug gold and silver from the land and mines in the Americas. These treasures were loaded onto ships and sent back to Europe. The ships were slow and heavy. They made good targets for pirates. Pirates would attack these ships, steal the treasure, and sail away before anyone could stop them. Some pirates even attacked towns and ports along the coast. One famous place that many pirates visited was Port Royal. It was a city on the island of Jamaica. In the 1600s, Port Royal was full of sailors, merchants, and pirates. It was known as one of the richest and wildest cities in the Caribbean. People called it the wickedest city on earth. Pirates came there to sell stolen goods, spend their money, and enjoy food, drink, and entertainment. Port Royal was important for another reason, too. The British Navy used it as a base to protect their colonies. Sometimes British leaders even hired pirates, calling them privateers. A privateer was like a pirate with permission. They were given a paper called a letter of marque. This let them attack ships from enemy countries during times of war. Privateers gave some of the treasure to their government, but kept the rest. One famous privateer was Henry Morgan. He was born in Wales but sailed for England. He attacked Spanish towns and ships and brought back lots of treasure. The English king liked him so much that he made Henry Morgan the lieutenant governor of Jamaica, but Morgan was still known for being rough and cruel, even after becoming a leader. Not all pirates were privateers, some were true outlaws. They attacked any ship they could find, no matter what flag it flew. They didn't care about rules. These pirates wanted freedom, adventure, and riches. One of the most famous pirates of all time was Edward Teach. People called him Blackbeard. He had a long black beard and tied burning matches under his hat to scare people. His ship was called the Queen Anne's Revenge. Blackbeard was very smart. He made people think he was dangerous so they would give up without fighting. He didn't actually kill very often, but he looked scary on purpose. Another famous pirate was Anne Bonny. She was a woman who dressed like a man and fought like one too. She sailed with another woman pirate named Mary Red. Both of them were brave and strong. They were part of a crew led by a pirate named Calico Jack. People were shocked to find women on pirate ships, but Anne and Mary showed that women could be pirates too. Pirates had their own rules. Most ships followed something called a pirate code. The code said things like how treasure would be shared, what jobs people had, and what happened if someone broke the rules. Every pirate on the ship got a share of the loot. Captains often had to be voted in by the crew. Some pirates even had rules for taking care of injured crewmates. If a pirate lost an arm or leg, he might get more treasure to help him. But life as a pirate was not easy. Ships were crowded, dirty, and full of danger. Food went bad quickly. Fresh water was hard to find. Many pirates got sick with diseases like scurvy. Battles were bloody and risky. And if pirates were caught, they were usually hanged. Pirate life could be exciting, but it was also short and hard. Now let's look at what is true and what is made up. Many things in pirate movies are not real. Pirates did not bury treasure in secret places. They usually spent their money right away. They did not make people walk the plank. That idea came from books and movies. Pirates also didn't talk like the ones in the movies. They spoke in many different ways, depending on where they were from. But some things are true. Pirates did wear sashes, earrings, and wide hats. They used swords, pistols, and cannons. They did fly flags, including the famous black flag with a skull and crossbones. This was called the Jolly Roger. It was used to scare other ships. Pirates hoped the flag would make people surrender without a fight. One big event changed Port Royal forever. In 1692, a terrible earthquake hit the city. Much of Port Royal sank into the sea. Ships, buildings, and people were swallowed by the water. After that, the city was never the same. Some people say the earthquake was a punishment for the city's wicked ways, but really it was just a natural disaster. By the 1720s, the Golden Age of Piracy was ending. Countries like England and Spain began to hunt down pirates more seriously. They sent out navy ships and offered rewards for catching pirates. Many were arrested and put on trial. Some became famous after they died, but during their lives, most were seen as criminals. Today, pirates are a big part of stories, books, and movies. The Pirates of the Caribbean movies helped many people learn about pirate life, even if some parts are made up. You can still visit places where real pirates once walked, like the ruins of Port Royal or museums in the Caribbean. The real Pirates of the Caribbean were not magic or cursed, or part of ghost stories. They were real people living in a wild time. They took risks, sailed far, and lived by their own rules. Some were heroes to their crews, others were feared by all, but their stories continue to be told, even hundreds of years later. Today, let's have some fun and talk about pirates. Personally, whenever I heard the word pirate, I automatically think of Captain Hook from Peter Pan. Captain Hook is a mean-looking man with long black hair, a beard and mustache, eye patch, and a hook for a hand after being bitten by a crocodile. Or maybe you think of Captain Jack Sparrow from Pirates of the Caribbean, with long hair bedecked with braids, beads, and baubles, sporting a pistol and sword by his side. And while Captain Hook fought Peter Pan, Captain Jack Sparrow fought Barbossa and the British. So what have you noticed so far about these two pirates? Long hair, yes. Weapons, check. Fighting spirit, definitely. But there's one thing they have in common. They're both men. Have you ever heard of a female pirate? Well, there really was one, and her name was Grace O'Malley. She was known as the Irish Pirate Queen. She was a very brave lady who was also a chieftain, meaning a great lord who ruled over the people in her area. She was a daring sailor, leader, and rebel, and even parlayed or negotiated with Queen Elizabeth I. Want to hear more? Me too, so let's get started. Many years around 1530, a girl named Grace was born in Mayo County, Ireland. We don't know much about her mother, but her father, Owen O'Malley, was a great lord of his country and an experienced sailor. And some even say a pirate. But it's hard to say if he was an actual pirate, meaning a sailor stealing things from other ships, or if he was just demanding payments as a landowner for ships to sail, trade, or fish in waters around his land. For generations, the O'Malley men had been great seafarers, traders, and yes, maybe pirates, who sailed the Irish coastline and even as far as Spain and Scotland. Pirate or not, Grace loved her father, her older stepbrother, and sailing. She was raised as a boy, or at least more leniently than girls at the time. She was allowed to join her father on his ships. She would watch fascinated as sailors shouted and raced around, pulling lines and setting sails. This thrilled Grace, and she wanted to sail too. But even though females were considered equal to men at the time in Ireland, there were still rules about how they should behave and what they should do with their lives, like staying home and raising children. But Grace was having none of that. She wanted to learn and sail and rule. She was very smart and could speak Gaelic and Latin and possibly other languages like Spanish and French too. One day when Grace was young, her father prepared to set sail for Spain. Grace wanted to join him, but her father said no, her hair was too long and would get caught in the lines. So what did Grace do? She cut off all her hair, and the sailors started calling her Bald Grace. But she was allowed to sail, and that was the important thing. In the ensuing years, Grace learned all there was about sailing and became an experienced deckhand. When Grace was 16, she married another sailor and landowner named Donald O'Flaherty. She moved into Donald's castle and had 3 children. Then one day, while Donald was out hunting, he was killed by members of the Joyce clan. The Joyces then marched to Donald's castle, thinking it would be easy to take it away from Grace, who was, in their opinion, just a woman. But that was their mistake. Grace fought back fiercely, protecting her family and land, and forced the Joyces to retreat. She acted like a mother hen, protecting her roost. People started calling her castle Hen's Castle, and it's still called that today. After her husband's unfortunate death, Grace returned with her children to her family's land on Clare Island and worked to rebuild their stone tower house. Her husband's followers admired Grace so much that they followed her to her lands. Grace's father died, and then she took over the family's ships and land and became the new chieftain. She and her loyal men sailed the waters like her father had done before her, boarding ships and demanding payment for safe passage, trade, or fishing around her land. This is how she acquired the name the Pirate Queen. And there's a legend that during this time, Grace saved a stranded sailor and they became very good friends. Tragedy struck once more when the sailor was killed by another clan. Grace was furious. To avenge her friend, she marched to Doona Castle and killed the men who had murdered her friend. She then acquired another name, the Dark Lady of Doona. Between sailing trips, Grace married Richard Burke, called Iron Richard for his ironworking. He was also a chieftain and had a lot of land, which allowed Grace to sail more ships out of her ports and continue her adventures. She birthed a son named Toby while on one of her ships. Legend states that Grace was below decks the day after Toby's birth when pirates attacked her ship. The battle was not going well, and it looked like Grace's crew would lose the fight. Grace grabbed her musket, climbed the stairs to the deck, and went into battle. Grace was as brave as any man and rallied her crew, shooting 2 pirates' captains in the battle. Together they beat off the pirates, and Grace's reputation grew. Additionally, Grace divorced Richard within a year and changed the locks on their castle, but he still remained close to her for the rest of his life. You may be wondering by this point how a fiercely independent female pirate would meet the Queen of England, especially since the Irish hated the English at the time. The English had taken their lands and property, causing constant battles between them for hundreds of years. Additionally, the current queen, Queen Elizabeth I, was playing a ruthless game of pitting one Irish clan against the other. She would give land and gifts to clan chieftains for their support and for fighting other Irish clans. This made the Irish fight amongst themselves as well as against the British. Grace was quite the powerful woman by this point, ruling the western shores of Ireland and launching attacks against Queen Elizabeth's ships with her pirate-honed prowess. The Queen sent ships and men to attack Grace Castle, but Grace beat them back. Around the year 1577, Grace was captured and put into several cold Irish prisons for a year. However, thanks to some important British gentlemen who disliked how the English were treating the Irish, Grace was eventually set free. She returned to her lands and started a rebellion against the British. In retaliation, one of her sons was killed and 1 or 2 others were taken prisoner. Her castle, lands, and fleet were taken away. Grace was also arrested, but later released. At this point, she was sick and tired of fighting the English and decided to speak to the Queen herself. No one thought this would ever happen. You don't just walk in and say, "I want to speak to the Queen," especially if you're a pirate. Queen Elizabeth demanded that Grace answer some questions first, called Articles of Interrogatory, before she would meet with the Pirate Queen. Grace must have answered them wisely because the Queen agreed to see her. According to the legend, when Grace arrived at Greenwich Palace, she didn't bow to the Queen because she considered herself equal to the Queen of England. Grace was searched and found to be wearing a dagger. You're never supposed to wear a weapon in the presence of the king or queen, but Queen Elizabeth must have admired and trusted Grace because she let her keep the dagger. It's said that this meeting lasted a long time, and the 2 women talked in Latin because the Queen did not know Gaelic, and Grace did not, or would not, speak English. Finally, they came to an agreement. The Queen would release Grace's family and her property, and Grace would provide 500 men in her ships to help support the English cause in Ireland. Some British nobles didn't trust Grace and didn't think she would keep her promise once released, so they took their time releasing her family. And in spite of her agreement with the Queen, Grace supplied ships to Irish rebels under the command of Hugh O'Neill. Although Grace didn't fight in the battles, it is said that she convinced 1 and possibly more of her sons to fight for the British against O'Neill. This didn't make her very popular with the Irish or future historians. And this is why for hundreds of years no one knew the story of Grace O'Malley, the Irish pirate queen. She's said to have died in 1603, the same year as Queen Elizabeth I, of natural causes at one of her 3 castles. So what do you think of Grace O'Malley? Do you think she was a pirate? Do you think she was brave to be a rebel woman in such tumultuous times? Do you think it was right for her to break her word to Queen Elizabeth I? Feel free to click the link in the show notes and tell us your thoughts. I think this is an amazing story of a remarkable woman and warrior. She was roughly the same age as Queen Elizabeth I, and her equal in many ways, in cunning, bravery, intelligence, and power. They were both headstrong and independent, ruled over a large group of subjects, inspired loyalty, excelled in a man's world, and loved winning. We hope you enjoyed this episode about Grace O'Malley, the Pirate Queen. Be sure to tune in next Monday for a new episode.